tell me what you think's that. Like, what do we need in order to kind of support this?
So it's interesting you used iOS. You talked about change. And I think if you consider what happens with your phone when it's just not responding, you can't get it to work, nothing. So what you do is it's the classic IT support, given that we're talking about technology. It's the hard reset. So you hold it down, reset it till it's blank and it starts up again, hoping it's going to fire back to life and be optimum. Now, if you think about what you've talked about, change, and you think about what's happened in the last 4 or 5 years, okay, so we've gone from a pre-pandemic state of most people believe that everything was great. Here we were, it's all good, life's good, you're in your lane. Pandemic happens, followed by a cost of living crisis, on top of a burgeoning climate crisis, and people having to deal with all that, deal with this huge change that's happening, alongside the changing nature of work. And then the question is, have we reset? Have we stopped and thought about all of those things? And have organisations understood what it means on an individual level for people to have gone through that, seen all of this happen, and think about how they adapt to meet people? Because I feel or see, and I'd be interested to know what Catherine thinks, there's this expectation that to some extent it feels like we're just back now to where we were before. Why aren't people doing what they should be doing the way organisations were set up to operate 4 years ago? And I don't believe anyone's taking into account, and certainly they weren't before, but what's happened? What is going on with people's lives that makes it different? And I don't know what you think about that, Catherine.
So is your question, do we need a reset? Are we resetting our human operating systems? Do we need a reset in order to kind of move on?
I would argue we probably needed a reset to focus on people before, but we certainly need it now. So absolutely, I think we need to reset and understand, look at where we are now before we start to think about how do we move forwards. Yeah. And we shouldn't be using what's worked in the past as a model for the future.
Yeah. So it is a real indication of if you just carry on as you were, you're just going to get what you got before. And actually, we know that we need to change. But this is the really interesting thing about human beings, isn't it? That actually we're designed to try to find the most the path of least resistance through. So we're always trying to make things easy for ourselves. And the easy thing to do is to just carry on as we were before and not really spend time in resetting and not really thinking about what's the environment we're now facing, what are the challenges we're now facing, how do we really need to change? Because change requires energy and attention, and it feels hard. Yeah. And that often makes people feel really fearful and anxious, and I don't know what to do. Yeah. So it's easier just to sit and wait for something catastrophic to happen that forces change.
Yeah, that burnout that we talk about.
Exactly, yeah. So I think we're in this sort of weird transition where everybody knows that change is coming. Yeah. The climate is changing. Yeah. The way we need to do business is changing. We've developed all this brilliant technology which frees us up. I mean, you look at AI and people are going, oh, what's going to happen with that? What's that going to mean for my livelihood? So we know we have to reset, but people are fearful because they don't know what to do in the future. And they think if they just keep their head down and carry on as they were before, maybe it'll all go away.
Is there like enough compassion of ourselves and people then? Because that's the thing, we're talking now about people in the way that we talk about technology or a system as a reset or an update, but we're not machines. We need a gap, right? We need to kind of stop, reflect, rest in order to do the next thing, get ready for the bit of change.
Exactly.
So, and is that the problem, that we're a bit impatient with ourselves? Have we got the empathy? Is the emotional intelligence there?
And that is exactly the thing. So the reset for me has to be around understanding how our brains work. So we talk about AI.
Yeah.
We need to talk about HI, human intelligence.
Yeah.
And that has to be the reset. Because until we deliberately understand how our brains work, how our emotions work, how we make better choices, how we can step back and look at what's going on, and we can work out together what the plan is for this next future part, and put our emotions aside. Because what's happening is we're all in this anxious state. Our emotions are taking over, fear, anxiety, whatever. Some people are excited about the future. But unless we park our emotions and we start thinking and engaging the executive part of our brain to solve these problems together, we're not going to be able to harness our human intelligence to work with the artificial intelligence that is now part of our world.
So Sat, then, to the question, how do we facilitate that reset? Like, what do we need to do now in order to kind of support that reset? Become more people focused, and I guess show ourselves and our teams more empathy.
So I think I really like the point about human intelligence versus artificial intelligence. And if you think about that point and how that answers the question to some extent as well, is that the reality of it is, to my mind, and I don't know what you would think, but regardless of AI, there is not a more complex piece of technology on this planet than a human being.
Yeah, completely.
Unless someone can present that, and when you talk about, people being excited, the narrative that you get, and how excited people are getting about AI, it far outweighs how excited we get about ourselves, as human beings. And if you think of where we are now, we're sat in this room surrounded by technology filming this, right? As human beings who have evolved from hunter-gatherers to be sat having this nuanced conversation. When you think about our ability and what we've done and the society and the civilization we've built, it's incredible. Humans did that. It wasn't done artificially. Now we've done good things and not so good things. We can talk about the climate, but that's not what we're here to talk about. But actually, we've done that by building tribes, by connectivity. If we had stayed as disparate people, we wouldn't have created everything that we have. We have to come back together, and we need to start becoming more connected to each other. So when you talk about kindness and empathy and all those, you're talking about social connectivity and remembering that we're human and empowering ourselves to recognize that and feeling that for ourselves. And that comes with this comes with nuanced conversation, with an ability to even not fixate on what is the business hard metric objective that we're trying to achieve. You have those conversations, they are not connecting at the moment, and they shouldn't connect with people because there's too much going on. So I think you're right. The reset is to start with, block everything out. Who are we? We're humans. Start there. What do humans need? And that's a question I think we can answer in different ways. Kindness, empathy, safety, etc. What do we need? What do you, for example, if you're an uncle, a parent, a grandfather, or whatever, what do children need? What do children need? Very often they need very simple things. They need, and I think you have to remember that's where we really are all children at the end of it. Even if we live 100 years, we're still children, right?
It's good leadership. It's creating community, and it's creating leaders within that community to demonstrate what good looks like, and I guess to see and feel and hear ourselves and create that capacity, I guess, to understand what we need as individuals, but also collectively. And if you put that in a business sense, it's how do you create teams that are set up for success? It's about putting the foundations in place and understanding that we are humans and that we all work individually, but collectively there's a real power in that if we
Yeah.
create the right capacity. Is that a good conclusion?
Yeah, and I think the one thing I would say is invest in that, invest in the human element of the people, whether that's through coaching, whether that's through just having more capacity to break out from normal work conversations, but invest in those discussions, in that effort to of people versus the technology.
Yeah. And really thinking about purpose, because that's what people are wanting. They want to work in organisations that have purpose, that means something to them as a human being.
Okay.
And that's what's missing often. And people are calling out for it.
So clear purpose, which I guess is anchored behind a great vision of where we're going, create the community, create the togetherness of a great team and the right platform to do it. Understand that we're all individuals, but there's a real power in that community coming together where it's anchored behind that purpose.